Hi, this is Brian Pasch, and thank you for joining this live stream or watching this video after it was first released. And I want to also thank the students at Southeastern University as part of my master's program who may be watching as well. Today, I want to talk to you about signals. That's right. And what if we've been sending the wrong signals to Google to optimize our advertising campaigns? Now, you may not be big at sports or, well, even a fan of baseball, but we've all seen coverage on the television where the pitcher and the catcher are sending signals back and forth. You may even seen some coaches on the sidelines doing this or rubbing their nose. Each one of those signals is designed to achieve an end result. For the pitcher and the catcher, those signals are to strike out the batter, meaning the signals are sent, they're received, and actions change to achieve the desired event. There's signals everywhere in the business world. In fact, Black Friday is a huge shopping day, and Amazon sees a tremendous spike in visitor traffic on Black Friday, but their websites don't crash. Why? Because as more people log in to the Google platform, signals are sent to the cloud computing infrastructure, and if they need more computers spun up to keep the speed of the website going, well, that's exactly what happens. You see, the signals are sent so a response can be given to meet the business objectives of the business. What if I told you that for 21 years, the automotive industry has been advertising on Google, but the playbook, the signals that we were using were wrong? Would that get your attention? What if I told you it could save your dealership tens of thousands of dollars a year and the automotive industry millions of dollars of ineffective advertising? Would that get your attention? So let's take a look at the story. Google first released AdWords in the year 2000, now called Google Ads. In the last 10 years, the automotive industry as a whole has spent billions of dollars in online advertising, not just with Google. Any digital advertising in the automotive industry in the United States is now close to $20 billion annually. You see, it's been a big gold rush if you're selling digital advertising, but the whole point of advertising online is to achieve the business objective of the advertiser. And what I found out, instead of sending the right signals to Google to advertise and optimize the goals of each local franchise dealer, we've been sending the wrong signals. In fact, what you'll find out today is we've been sending mostly green light signals for things that have nothing to do with selling a new or used car. It's this framework of sending the right signals that will change the way which Google operates and also have your advertising more efficiently spent. But first, let me say, I was wrong as well. I've been advertising for auto dealers for 16 years. I've been following the playbook that, well, every other Google certified agency was using, and we were all wrong. It wasn't until I was challenged by a group of dealers that demanded answers why they felt their Google advertising spend was becoming less efficient over time instead of more, that I finally got the answers. So this fall, I put together some research and I'm sharing it with you today with the hope that, well, a new framework would revolutionize the way you thought about Google advertising in automotive, and that together with your ad agency, you would improve your marketing outcomes. You could read all of the details of my research by just going to brianpasch.com and downloading the research report. And that research report will have far more details in it that I'm going to cover today, and it's ideal for planning meetings with your agency partners. I want you to imagine now, let's pause for a minute and imagine that you were confident each month when you wrote that check to the agency that your advertising was really effective. Right now, dealers continually ask me, Brian, I'm not really sure what I should be spending, if it's working, if it's achieving my business goals. And today we're going to understand, at least in part, why it's been so hard for auto dealers to know if their Google advertising is working. But I want you to close your eyes for a moment and imagine waking up and receiving your marketing report from your agency, finally being able to understand those metrics, finally being able to inspect the quality of the traffic that's being sent to your website with a new framework that I'm going to introduce today. Now, everyone's at different levels of their understanding. I've been doing this for 16 years, so it comes, well, fairly easy for me to talk about Google Analytics and Google Ads. But if you're not familiar, let's set a quick little framework, and here it is. Google Analytics is the free tool that shows you what goes on your website when somebody visits. In fact, it's able to send signals to tell you what people were doing. Google Ads, on the other hand, well, just sends traffic to a website or, well, shows ads, say on YouTube, and it waits for you to send it a signal whether you thought that ad click, well, achieved an outcome that aligned with your sales objectives. I want you to think about this in a different way. You have offers and outcomes. Google Ads presents the offer. And when they come to your website, well, did they fill out a form? Did they call? Did they configure a car? Those are the outcomes. And here's the beauty. When you connect the offer to the outcomes, when you send back to Google the signals to its advertising engine, well, things start to work the way it was supposed to be. But I want you to pause for a moment and write a little note. Just take a piece of note paper down. And here's the question I want you to ask your agency. What signals are you sending to Google Ads to optimize my campaigns to sell new and used cars? Remember the pitcher and the catcher. If the catcher was making up signals that the pitcher didn't understand, well, they'd be a very inefficient partner. If the load balancing servers in the Amazon cloud didn't increase CPU capacity when shoppers increased, well, websites would crash. So if you're spending money on Google Ads and people are clicking on your ads and coming to your website, what signals are you sending back to Google to say, hey, that was a really good shopper. That was a great outcome for my ad dollars. But in order for you to see this new framework, we have to look outside of automotive to something that would make sense for everyone who's watching today. This is a company called Medify. They're the #1 seller of air purification systems on Amazon. I know the owner of the company. And you're going to see right here, when I Googled their name, 2 Google ads showed. One is an inventory-based or a product-based ad, and then the one below, well, that is just a basic text ad. Those 2 ads showed up when I Googled their name. Well, where would you expect the ad to take me if I clicked on that one unit? Well, you should say, well, it's going to go right to that product page. But what about that other one? Where would you send that basic ad? Well, most likely to the home page. So the question I have for you is, if these ads were designed to sell units, new units, which ad would be working better? Now, right now, you may say, Brian, I have no idea which ad would work better. But wouldn't the answer be which one sold the most units? Think about that for a moment. We advertise with a business objective. You may not know whether a product ad or a basic text ad, well, works better than the other until you looked at how much did the clicks cost and how many units were sold. You see, if I click through to the Medify website, I'd come to the homepage, just like, well, a car dealer website. And then if I was searching for products, there is their product page, very much like a list of vehicles on a car dealership website. And if I narrow down my products and boom, I find the unit I want, this is the product page. In the automotive industry, we might call this the vehicle detail page or the VDP. But for Medify, I can click on a button and buy it. Well, I didn't complete this purchase because I have a good friend and they sent me the unit for free. I bring this up because how do you know which ad format, which targeting, which keywords generated the most sales? The objective of this campaign is to sell more units. For example, California, when there's wildfires, the units of air purification units just, well, go through the roof. So think about all the hundreds of keywords that you might buy in a Google campaign, some product ads, some text ads, some display ads, some video ads, targeting the West Coast, targeting the East Coast, running at night, running in the morning. And what happens with those clicks? Well, some people may come in and purchase. Some may just shop, or some may just do nothing. And you're really hard-pressed to know if that click was effective. Could you imagine trying to figure this out manually? Well, the good news is that's what Google does. You see, as long as you feed back to Google the signal of what happens after they click the ad. Did they buy? Did they shop? Or did they do nothing? This is so basic for e-commerce, but just like car dealers have service and sales, so does Medify. They sell filters. So some of those clicks could go in and they go to the filter page, and then they go to find a filter and they go and buy a filter. And same thing, what if their ad agency thought buying MA25 was a great keyword to sell units, but as you could see, 85% of the clicks bought filters. Or, no, people know Medify MA25, let's buy that keyword, that's going to help with our sales campaigns for new units. And, well, only 70% bought filters. That's not what the ad campaign was for. Oh, so the outcomes are really important to send back to Google. Let me say that again. In e-commerce, you just don't send back how much was purchased, you send back what was purchased so Google can determine which keywords are good to sell units and which keywords are better to facilitate filter sales. You see, it's so simple outside of automotive. If you want good sales campaigns, just feed Google with the sales outcomes and those sales shopping behaviors. And if you want to sell more filters, make sure you send the outcomes of filter sales or people who are looking at filter pages. But you would never just send back to Google, hey, that click bought something. If you had one product, sure. But I picked Medify Air because they're very much like a car dealer. They have a sales department, a service department. Google needs the right signals to optimize campaigns. So you may be asking, well, Brian, this is pretty simple so far. Are you telling me no one's been setting up Google properly to send the right signals back to the advertising engine? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And I don't care if you're a large public company in the automotive industry or a single point store, there's no accountability in our automotive industry, and that's why this research is so important. Someone has to stand up for the dealer and say, hey, enough's enough. We have to stop the waste. Now, step back for a moment. You know your business inside and out. You know your website inside and out. What would be the signals you would want to send back to Google? Think about it for a minute. We know that today, for the most part, no one's buying cars completely online, so it's a departure from the Medify example, but think about it. How would you know if someone was an interested shopper in a new or used car? Well, you already probably have a list going. They looked at photos, they looked at the Carfax, they looked at the window sticker. Maybe they used your digital retailing tools to look at payments. They've customized their down payment to see a monthly amount. They've used your trade-in tools to get the approximate value of their vehicle. Or maybe they completed a lead form and asked you to call them back, or maybe they want to schedule a test drive. Do you see? These are all signals that should be sent back to Google to optimize our sales campaigns, because people don't purchase cars online today. Now, in the future, when we can execute a legal document completely online and a car can be delivered to our home, then, of course, that's a major success signal, but still, my prediction is that the majority of people will still be coming into the dealership to buy cars for a long time. So we have to get our signals right, especially when we're spending millions of dollars a year on Google advertising. I like to break the signals up into two groups. Hard conversions, these are things that consumers do that provide us a way to contact them. So they call us, they fill out a lead form, or they chat or text with us, or they use your digital retailing tool, which includes their phone number, name, or home address. And then soft conversions, things that consumers do that don't necessarily disclose who they are, but they're really good signals to tell me if they're an interested shopper. Think about it. If somebody is interested in a car, they may look at the pictures the first time. The second time, they may look at the Carfax. All of these signals help to tell you that your advertising is bringing active shoppers. Now, it's very important that when we talk about signals, the signals have to be meaningful. They just can't be feel-good metrics. You know, we talk about stories about young children in a competition where everyone gets an award, and we're like, ooh, why give everyone an award? Although that may be a sign of the times in our culture, we do it in marketing as well. We make metrics that are easy to achieve or meaningless just to fluff up our advertising reports. We're all guilty of this. Things like setting a signal. They visited a VDP or a vehicle detail page. Well, that's a silly signal if your ad campaigns are driving people to a VDP. Time on site is 3 minutes or greater. That doesn't tell me what they were doing on the website. Oh, they looked at 3 or 4 pages. Oh, okay. Were those pages sales pages or service pages? You see what I'm saying? Is there are certain metrics or signals you can send to Google which are really meaningless. They make you feel good because they happen a lot, but the signals that we want to send to Google can't be feel-good metrics or fluff metrics, because Google's going to optimize and consider the signals you send as important to optimize the advertising campaigns. Here's an example of a dealer, which is so commonplace. They had 3 signals set up. A dealer should have anywhere between 15 and 20 sales signals being sent to Google, and between 15 and 20 service signals sent to Google for service campaigns. Here's a dealer who has the ability to call, chat, fill out forms, digital retailing tool, and look, there's only 3 signals and only one of them is working. Here's the harsh reality. Some dealers don't have the signals set up at all. And don't go pointing fingers. That's an important thing. We'll get to that in a minute. Here's a dealer who has lots of signals, but, well, there's no hard conversion signals here, and most of these signals are meaningless. Just because somebody visited a page doesn't mean they did something on the page, especially if your ads are taking them to the page. Yeah. You see, some dealers don't have signals configured. Some have few, but missing a lot, and others have a lot of signals, but they're just fluff metrics. And this is absolutely unforgivable in 2021. You see, not judging anyone, because I was part of the problem until the research was complete, 9 out of 10 dealers that I inspect today have the wrong signals configured or being sent to Google. So what if the marketing playbook is broken? What do we do? Now that you understand, if you want your ad campaigns to generate more new or used car sales, we better send to Google the signals that say these people are shopping for a car. So what is needed? The first thing we need to do is not get upset and point fingers. Because as I mentioned, as a leader in this industry, I was following Google's playbook as well. You'll see specifically what was wrong in a minute, but it's very important that you don't point fingers or get angry. What you need to do is say, this is new research. This research makes sense. It's easy to understand and easy to implement. So even though we may have been sending Google the wrong signals in the past, let's start the new year right by optimizing our campaigns to sell new and used cars with signals that show people who are shopping for a new or used car. One of the signals that, well, was popular at some time and still referenced by many dealers is this idea of a store visit. Hey, if I advertise on Google and I have my ad out there, if somebody comes to the dealership, yes, that's great. But you forget how important service is in your business. In fact, I asked a dealer that I trusted very much in the month of August of 2021, how many cars did they sell? 400, new and used, total. How many customer pay repair orders? 4,000, 10 to 1. I asked her, because she had all the data, how many people waited for the car? She said 63% of them. And 37% dropped off the car and came back. So I figured out how many times these people were on the dealership lot, and then I did the similar thing for sales. For this dealer, about 3.5 times more people were on the lot for service than sales. And I have shared this research with a number of dealers, and they've also said, yeah, 3 to 4 times more people per month are on my physical lot for service than sales, especially now with lower inventory levels. Why do I bring this up? A store visit is a polluted signal for sales campaigns. It's so dominated, right? 70, 80% of those store visits are for service. Why would you ever use that as a signal to optimize your sales campaigns? Another very common signal that have been used since the beginning of call tracking is phone calls as a signal for sales success. I asked Dealer eProcess to look at the way in which consumers convert in Google Ads campaigns, and they said, well, 2/3 of the people, if they're going to convert to a hard conversion, they're going to call, and then they'll fill out a form, and some will just chat or text. Do you understand that if we use phone calls for a positive sales signal, those phone calls better be for sales? In fact, I asked Dealer.com, one of the largest Google advertisers in the automotive retail space, and they said 85% of their conversions are phone calls. But here is the thing that just blew my mind, that less than 13% of phone calls on Google Ads campaigns run by dealers in a typical fashion were for sales. Less than 13%. Hold on a second. Brian, I understand the store visits. We shouldn't be using store visits as a metric or a signal to send back to Google to optimize sales campaigns if the majority of those visits are for service. But I always thought that phone calls was a good one. Well, here's the problem. We need to separate phone calls from sales, service, and parts. if we just assume that every phone call from a Google ad campaign is for sales because the ad was paid for by the sales department, or the ad said, hey, we're offering a sale, or hey, we're a great place to buy a car, what you're going to find out is, well, if you buy your own name, or a Honda dealer near me, or Honda dealer, these very broad keywords, the majority of those conversions are for service. Now, I want to be very clear. The reason why we got off track, why we didn't realize we were sending the wrong signals, is because we weren't looking at the outcomes of our conversions. You see, store visits and phone calls works great for your local Italian restaurant. If you have a favorite local restaurant, let's just imagine that they were new in your local market, so they decided to advertise on Google. Let's say it's an Italian restaurant. So they buy keywords like Italian restaurants, or Italian eating, or Italian restaurants near me. Hey, if somebody clicks on that ad and calls, they're either ordering food or making a reservation. That's great. If they visit the restaurant, well, they're going there to eat or pick up food. So a store visit works perfectly for a business that has one product or solution. It wouldn't work well for restaurants if people started calling them and asking them for recipes or advice or how not to burn the lasagna. It wouldn't work very well if they started bringing their cast iron pans and asking the restaurant to fix them, or taking a recipe that the restaurant published and showing them it didn't turn out right and ask for help. You see, restaurants don't service cookware, and nor do they help other people cook. Car dealers sell cars, but they service them, they fix them, they give advice to them. Phone calls in themselves could be for any department, and here's what we found out. Most dealers were taking every phone call as a positive sales signal and sending them back to Google. When we separated out the sales phone calls from service and parts, when we eliminated store visits as a metric to evaluate the success of sales campaigns, we found out that Google, well, is 5 to 10 times more expensive than dealers thought, because their agency reports were using all conversions, all chats, all lead forms, all phone calls, and store visits, and averaging a cost per conversion, which now seems very silly that we did it. So what about the solution? I promised you at the beginning that this solution can save the average dealers thousands, tens of thousands, and larger groups hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. And here's the good news. It's free. That's right. The framework that I'm going to share with you and the supporting materials that you can download online is all free. What we want to do for the first time is align sales objectives with our marketing campaigns. We're going to send Google sales signals for our sales campaigns, and we're going to send Google service signals for our service campaigns. How are we going to do it? There's something called a view in Google Analytics, and for those of you who are technical, a view can have 20 signals. So we're going to create a view of the data on the dealer's website with 20 signals. Those signals will be hard and soft conversions. Same thing, we're going to create a service view, and we're going to build 20 hard and soft signals or conversions for service. You see, we're going to inspect your websites. We're going to make sure that the signals are firing. We're going to record those signals and send them back into Google. So the real question is, well, Brian, how do I know in Google Analytics if a phone call was for sales or service or parts, or maybe just a delivery for the dealership? This is a breakthrough which a number of companies are now bringing to market, which is for the first time, when somebody hits the dealership's phone system and the interactive voice response unit says, press 1 for sales, 2 for service, 3 for parts, 4 for the body shop, or 5 to speak to an operator, those button presses can go into Google Analytics as a call outcome. See, today, when somebody does a mobile click to call on your website, you have a signal that says, oh, they called, and you've been sending that to Google to optimize your sales campaigns because you assumed if the campaign was talking about cars, it should be about cars, but that isn't the case. Remember, less than 13% are actually for sales. So for the first time, we can go into Google Analytics and see those click events, those mobile click to call or desktop calls actually showing up with details on what type of call it was. And so what do? We will provide you with a new framework, a list of up to 20 goals that you can download and import into your Google Analytics account for sales, and a script to load those 20 service signals into your new service view to customize for your website. You see, the framework that we're doing now is to say, when we have new car and used cars or VIN-specific campaigns, we're going to track meaningful metrics on the website. And then in Google Analytics, listen, we're going to track the sales outcomes and sales shopping events. And then we're going to send those signals back to Google Ads. We're not going to use store visits. We're going to send sales signals. Now, there are still campaigns, and you'll see these in yellow, where a dealer might buy their name or buy their brand and city. Those campaigns are not pure sales campaigns. They're primarily service campaigns. And then you're going to have dedicated service campaigns where you're doing your tire sales or oil change promotions, or in the future, even EV battery checkups. These three types of campaigns are color-coded because they need different signals so that they're optimized properly. When we talk about sales campaigns, we're going to track the things on the dealer's website that make sense for tracking shopper engagement, and then we're going to make sure that our hard conversions and soft conversions, or signals, are properly working and sent back to Google. You see, just like at Medify, if somebody clicked on an ad and came to the website, it wasn't just okay to know they bought something. You have to send back to Google, what did they buy? Was it a success for a units sales campaign, or was it a success for the filter campaign? Same thing. You can't force somebody to fill out a lead form or to buy a car online, but we can send back, did they provide some information? Did they act like a shopper? These are the signals that Google will use to get more shoppers. Now, hopefully, you've realized what you have been doing is, in effect, telling Google to give you more service customers. Because what signals have we been sending back? We may be sending back phone calls, which we now know have very low, as a percentage, sales opportunities. We may be sending all lead forms, and some of those lead forms are for service. We may be sending all chats or text messages, at least half of them are for service. And then we weren't sending all those valuable signals like, hey, did they look at the window sticker? Did they look at the Carfax? Did they use SpinCar to look at the photos? You see, the signals that we were sending were all green lights in our mind to help Google optimize our sales campaigns, but they were the wrong signals. And that's why we have the opportunity to normalize. There are going to be some keywords and ad strategies that are going to bring shoppers. That's our green light. There are going to be some campaigns that we thought were really good for sales, but they ended up being more for service or parts, and we're going to have to make a change. And then there's some campaigns that just don't work at all, or cost effective for all for sales, and what you're going to find out, they're mostly, again, for service or parts. We need to bring a framework in place that records the shopper's actions, and then we have to know, for sales campaigns, we send pure sales signals. For service campaigns, we're going to send pure service. So here's your action plan. We have to get serious about tracking everything that goes on your website. That's right, we have to tag all the things that people do and record those in Google Analytics. we're going to recommend that you create a new sales view with up to 20 signals for sales and a new service view with up to 20 signals for your service campaigns. And then here's the key. You tell your agency which signals you want to use for your sales campaigns and which signals you want to use for your service campaigns. For most dealers today watching this video, you have no idea what signals are being recorded on your website and which signals are being sent back to Google. If you find out that all phone calls are being sent back, you know it's part of the problem. If you have a goal like VDP views or SRP views to optimize your sales campaigns, false friends. If you're just using time on site or more than 3 pages viewed, false friends. They are not pure sales signals. This is the framework we need to embrace. Let's go back to our baseball analogy. Coaches, not just pitchers and catchers, have signals. We trusted Google and others to educate us on how to use the platform. And we went headlong into, well, a framework that, in fact, inflated conversions for sales campaigns because most of those conversions were for service. What I'm suggesting is that we change our framework for measuring success. We isolate the signals for sales and service, and we use them independently to optimize the business objectives of our sales department and the business objectives of our service department. With a new framework, we can send the right signals to Google. And here's the beautiful thing. Google's advertising engine is the most sophisticated in the world. It just relies on giving the right signals that you want to use to achieve your sales objectives. And that is the best way to start your new year with an optimized ad strategy that gives you more of the outcomes you want for your advertising dollars. Thank you for your time.